Knowledge Keepers, a podcast about language, laws, and the tiny rituals that keep a mother tongue alive. I'm your host, Masturah Maidin, designer, researcher, and founder of Malay Mondays. Throughout this series, we've heard from practitioners and artists about the current landscape of Malay language in Singapore. But we've not yet heard directly from the generation at the heart of this story, the young people themselves. Today I'm joined by Yasmin Asyura. Yasmin graduated with a degree in sociology and a second major in Malay Studies. She was president of the NUS Malay Studies Society and also president of NUS Ilsa Tari, a Malay dance group. She currently works in events management, driven by a passion to create and curate. What I want to know is what drew her to Malay Studies, how did the decision change her relationship with the language, her family, and her own sense of identity. And does that give her a fresh perspective on the peers and the relationship with their mother tongue? Yasmin, welcome to Knowledge Keepers.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. So I think that's you're probably the youngest that we've had on this podcast, and it's also because we haven't had a chance to speak to the younger generation about what it actually means to be in that position of wrestling with the identity, with using Malay language in your everyday and stuff like that. Yeah. So I wanted to start with a simple question. What made you choose Malay Studies?
Okay, I would like to say passion, but honestly, that wasn't the first thing that I was thinking about. So I actually been a part of the Malay language elective program back in JC. So they really exposed me to a lot of different programs within the school. We got to interact with students from other JCs and kind of have discussions and stuff like that. So I think being a scholar as well under the MLP program, they actually brought us to NUS to have a bit of a sharing by Dr. Asa actually at that point in time. So I was like, oh, okay, kind of invisible string theory or something. So he kind of shared about Malay studies, and it's something that that might interest us as people who are kind of championing the Malay language at that point in time and being a bit more involved in this kind of activity. So when I applied to NUS, I was like, oh, okay, I know there's this okay, I forgot what it's called, but it's you can add points to your A-level score or something. And then after that, you will take Malay Studies as your major as well. So that's kind of one of the ways of how I got introduced to it.
Okay.
But then also, my mom, she studied Malay language in University Malaya at that point in time. So she was also like, oh yeah, I've heard this Malay Studies thing. It's different from Malay language. It's not exactly the same. But maybe it's something you might want to try. And then she also kind of introduced sociology to me. So that was kind of how I got into it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. What did you think Malay Studies was? And then was it exactly what you expected?
Not really. So I think Malay Studies, it was kind of generic. I just thought it would be more towards the Malay language. I think a lot of people also assume that. But when I took my first ever Malay Studies module, I felt I was mind blown. He was Dr. Hassan was telling us things. I was like, oh, when he introduced the myth of the lazy native, and I was like, oh, so I'm not the problem. The problem is the system. I was like, I felt that was so groundbreaking, and it ignited such a spark in me and so much excitement. So then it really pulled me towards wanting to learn more about Malay studies. So even though I came in being a Malay studies major, I think it just was so interesting, which is why I then joined Malay Studies Society also. Yeah.
Tell us about that. As president of the Malay Society at NUS, what was your role and what was the society about?
Okay, so our motto is Renung Fikir Suara, which is Renung Fikir Suara. Let me translate that. Or reflect, think, speak. Yeah. So I joined it in year 2 because it was like kind of COVID and stuff like that. So I just wanted to be around people who are also studying Malay studies. So what we actually do is we have events on like if we want to discuss certain social issues. So really like think through whatever that we've learned in class that we find it's important. So for example, during my term, I think one of the more interesting and like it was really like hard hitting topics that we did was it was called Fact or Fallacy, the Deviant Shia. So it was an event about where we actually brought in people from the Shia community, and then we also had one of our professors there whose wife was a Shia, but he's a Sunni. So I think that was kind of an interesting dynamic to observe. I think ultimately the message was that we are all human, you know, because there's a lot of animosity towards the Shia community, especially here, you know, even like when our friends or like our schoolmates were hearing about it, they were like, oh, what are you guys doing? Who do you guys think you are doing this kind of thing? Who gave you permission to do this? And then when the publicity post went out, actually, the public mistook it for the Muslim society. So then they also got backlash. They were like, why are you letting why are you having this kind of programs, you know? But I think ultimately, we feel that what we're doing, okay, I wouldn't say it's right, but I would say there's a purpose to why we're doing it. And
It's giving a platform.
Yes, yeah. And giving a platform to people who don't usually have that voice, or like, you know, where else would they have this space to kind of speak about what they do? And, you know, they're not that much different from us. You know, we are all people at the end of the day, and we have our own lives, and, you know, everybody also has feelings. So I think it kind of allowed people to understand a bit more. I don't think they necessarily agreed with what they like with the Shia community or what we were doing, but I think ultimately, I think it opens that door to have that conversation. Yeah,
exactly. I don't think the purpose is to have an agreement at the end. But it's just to hear the other side.
Yeah,
right. Cool. So I think you touched on a point that a lot of the Malay community and also Singaporeans themselves are confused about. When you say Malay, do you mean Muslim? And when you say Muslim, do you mean Malay?
I think it's a bit hard to divorce the two because it's so heavily intertwined because of like the histories and everything. So I think while you can kind of assume that Malay is Muslim and Muslim is Malay in some contexts, I think having that distinction, you know, I think making it a habit to make that distinction every time we have that conversation is also quite important lah. Yeah.
Because I think you've mentioned before that there's a lot of Islamic topics also within the NUS Malay Studies, right? And decoupling them is going to be very difficult. Like we can assume the majority is this, and we can sort of speak for the outliers when they're there, like the minority when they're there. But like in general, we can safely say like the two are intertwined.
Yeah, I think also during our events or whatever, we make it very explicit that it's not a discussion about theology. That is not what we are here about. It is purely from like a sociological perspective, a perspective that hopes to have a bit of empathy towards these groups. So this is not a bashing session. This is not a session to, you know, get you on our side. It is just merely a space to have like a cordial conversation to learn more. Yeah.
And we need more of those. Okay, so what do you see in your peers, like their relationship with language and how they identify with themselves being like Malay or speaking English or being Malay and speaking Malay?
I think I see for the most part two different categories. So there's one who is like extremely fluent. You know, anytime they're having like a conversation with people who are like a little bit older, they can just carry that on, and it's like a full out Malay conversation, or it's like very proper Malay. So it's like they get invited to events where essentially it's a very it's a Malay language event lah. So I think there's that side where they're very confident with the use of the language also, and I think they I'm not sure if they practice it very often, but they're very strong in the use of it lah. But then I think what's a bit more common on the other side is those who say, oh yeah, Malay is not very good. I mean, I hear that quite often. Sometimes when I just be a bit more bilingual, then they're like, it can sense a bit of like a pullback when I'm talking to them. But I'm like, I mean, it's fine lah. Like really, I just feel that you will only get better with more practice and use of it. And I think it's like the small things, just being comfortable talking to your friends about it. Yeah. But I think what I like to encourage is like, to have to be the first one to speak a bit of Malay in the conversation, and then you can tell they slowly kind of pick up. Yeah, but I do sometimes get the comments like, I have a friend, whenever I say something, it's like, okay, Berita Harian. When I don't even work at Berita Harian, but like, yeah.
Where is that judgment coming from? So, on the first episode, I had Adli Mosbet, and she said that also, that we should practice. We shouldn't care what people think, and we should, the minute you see somebody else who is Malay, it's just start, just because that's a language that you both share. And even if the response is, half-hearted or anything, you start to like involve people in the language and sort of say like, oh, we have something in common, right? And I think that's true in a sense, but like there's a lot of also judgment about when you speak to like a stranger in Malay. I think there's this you have to figure out the tone, the like how I guess choose the right words and all these kind of things, especially like you mentioned, like when they're speaking to somebody older or somebody younger, or even say the opposite sex. Like how do you navigate that?
I mean, usually I don't really think too much about it, but I think it's an interesting question that you've posed. I think maybe if I'm talking to my grandparents, right? I think I'm a bit more, I wouldn't say formal, but I think because their main language is Malay, so I'm making more of an effort to have proper like Malay sentences. But sometimes I'm like, I will still say something in English. Oh, it's macam ni 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 ni. I try to describe it instead. But I think because I'm very lucky to have, to know enough to be able to converse with them at length. So I think that's a great thing. But I guess when maybe I'm talking to like younger people, then it's just a bit more chill, like a bit more bahasa pasar, a bit more bilingual in that sense. Yeah, I think that's how I navigate it. I don't know. It's not actually something I think about. It's more of something that I do, and I kind of feel out the situation to see whether they feel comfortable. So maybe I'll say things like, okay, I don't know. It will come naturally, but it will just be like one Malay word, and then I just kind of see how they respond to it. And then if they carry on after that, then I'm like, okay, then I would just be a bit more relaxed. But I do feel like when it's a bit more bilingual or it's towards the Malay side, I just kind of rest into this conversation a bit better, and I feel a bit more comfortable. But maybe that's just me lah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when you meet like a stranger and they're Malay, do you first speak to them in Malay?
I think it depends on the setting actually, because like, so if it's like work or something, high chance it's in English. But because I'm also like part of Malay dance, right? So typically the language that we use there is like mundur or like bangkit. So it's like it's all Malay terms. So I think just to get into the mindset of thinking in Malay, typically when I speak to them, it's also, especially like my cikgu and stuff like that, it will be in Malay lah. So, and then when they teach also, usually they try, it's either mixed or it's in Malay. So then it's also something to get used to. So when I first joined, actually it was a bit, I had no idea what the terms meant. So I was like, mundur, and I'm like, what does that mean? I mean, I should know lah.
I mean, technically you know what the word means, but in this context, exactly what it doesn't mean. Yeah. Okay, that's such a great segue, because the next topic was going to be about your dancing. So you're president of the NUS Ilsa Tari, the Malay dance group. And you've mentioned that sometimes you use Malay, sometimes you use English in this setting. Like, what would make the difference? Like, when would you use Malay versus English?
I think when, we're just going through like more administrative stuff, or it's like a bonding thing, maybe it will be in English. So I think just to kind of set a baseline. But I think when it comes to the actual dancing itself, because it's the language that the tutor or the choreographer is using, so then it's like, I think when I think there's a certain beauty in the Malay language. It's like a, I don't know if sopan santun is the right word, but it's very elegant. So I think because Malay dance is a very, you need to be strong, but you need to be soft at the same time. So it helps me to kind of embody the feeling.
Okay.
So I think in that regard, then that's where the Malay language kind of helps a bit, because then I feel it's really a feeling lah. Yeah.
Okay. I love that the hand start also the minute you talk about dance. But can you give us some examples about these?
Let me try to recall, because I actually had a conversation with my cikgu recently, and I was actually telling him that I don't feel like I was saying it, I was talking to him in English. It was just like a car ride. I was like, cikgu, actually saya rasa saya joget ni tak cantik. Yeah, macam terlampau kaku, or I just don't like how I look like lah. So like, what can I do to be better? I was asking him. I was like, then he will reply in Malay. So, awak kena tengok cara orang lain joget, and then so I think in that regard, his response kind of puts me into like the setting and everything. So it's like, kalau awak nak tahu macam mana nak joget dengan ikut hati, dengan ada bentuk dia semua, then awak tengok cara orang carry themselves. So it's like, if this person typically they're a bit more like like more like, it will show in the ways that they move their body as well. So I think through I don't really have a direct example in terms of like the dance per se, because it's just a bit fluffy right now. But I think even in just those conversations, so I'm like, okay, so I just need to think in that way. And I think generally, because when he's talking in that manner and like it's in the Malay language, it just helps to set some things. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Okay, so your work in events management now, these creating and curating experiences, how does your background in Malay studies and sociology inform the way you approach your work?
I feel that Malay studies and soci, or more so Malay studies, like it's all about critical thinking. It's all about being like meticulous. It's all about teasing out like what the actual problem is. So I feel like a lot of times people are busy problem solving or seeking for solutions. But if you're seeking a solution, but your problem is the problem that you've identified is a wrong problem, you might as well don't have the solution, because you're not actually solving what needs to be addressed. So I think when it comes to events management, understanding like who your target audience is, what exactly is their vision, and then I think because typically what I do is like a middleman between the content team and then also the team that executes it. So I think trying to understand all the different perspectives, and then after that marry to become something that is realistic. So because sometimes the ideas are like on and on and on. It's like, oh, there's so many things you want to do, but the budget is not there. Or it's like they have a lot of ideas of how they want to move the camera, or like make it super game show styly, but then the content team feels like, oh, that's not really going with what we want, that's not the branding that we want. So I think through having a lot of practice with trying to identify what different people want, and then maybe also what needs the timelines and everything, I think it just helps to, because it makes sure that you are keeping in mind different things at the same time, so that you can achieve the same goal. Because I think sometimes people have great ideas, but then whether it's possible to do it, or like whether they're doing it in the right way, it's a completely different thing. So I feel like being in that very unique position, I'm able to have a big picture of everything, of then propose what is the best next course of action lah.
I wouldn't have thought that events management would be anything close to what I do as an experienced designer, but technically it's basically about the same, because it's like stakeholder management with defining what the problems are, specific problems to specific solutions, which is cool. I learned that now. Okay, so you mentioned that you speak Malay at home with your grandparents. Yeah. And what about your parents?
With my parents, occasionally, I think a bit more so growing up because like I was studying and I actually did Malay language as a subject, and my mom's a Malay teacher, so just to put that into context. But I think sometimes when we on a normal level, not really. Most of the time it's in English. But I think when we sometimes get into like a bit of a conversation, and sometimes when my mom tries to emphasize a point, that's when the Malay comes out. So it's like, no, kita sebagai orang Melayu, and then she will start with like her gaya and her tone and everything. Yeah, so I have learned, I don't know, learned behavior whenever I want to emphasize something, and I know that the person speaks in Malay also. I will switch that particular sentence. I will switch to Malay language. Yeah.
Okay. Which is interesting because like through my research, I noticed that Malay comes out when there's emotions involved, right? So we could be a Malay English speaking family, and then the minute I'm annoyed, you know, it will come out. Dah cakap berapa banyak kali. You know,
it's always that standard line that bila tengah marah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no words in English sometimes that like can fully capture what some Malay phrases mean.
Yeah.
Right. I think like what you said, your mom said just now, like, you know, kita sebagai orang Melayu, when we say it in English, maybe it doesn't have that oomph, you know. Yeah, so I do get it. So when I was interviewing people and trying to get them to like, okay, how do we switch to speaking Malay at home, because a lot of these parents that I've interviewed said that, you know, I berbual dengan my husband dalam Melayu je, tak ada masalah. Tapi I tengok je my kid, terus immediately it's in English. And then there's this like, how do I unlearn and how do I make sure that my kids then grow up bilingual? Because it has to start at home, right?
Yeah.
Because part of the reason why we're in this problem right now is because English is like the language of the economy.
Yep.
Right? And if we want to get ahead, etc., it will be in English. But then we also must realize that there's a cultural, a heritage, you know, a really emotional meaning to speaking Malay. And I learned that late, right? Because I'm very much English speaking, even though at home I speak Malay. But I feel like there's different facets of Malay that some I haven't grasped. So like at home Malay is very like, you know, when I talk about myself, and then when I was a kid, of course, so when I talk about myself and I was mad, I would call myself orang.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Like, why is that? I don't know why that is, because I cannot say aku to my mom, right?
Oh, yeah.
I say, yelah orang dah cakap kan, you know. And then when I switched to like, meeting peers in like primary school, I can't say that. That sounds very childlike, you know. But then if I say aku also, it's very kasar. Then okay, maybe primary school we start, kita nak buat ni. Awak? Okay. And then when in secondary school, it's like, again, you're childlike. So let's upgrade into, kau nak buat apa ni hari? You know? But I can't say that to people that I don't really know.
Yeah.
So then I started to, the older I get, the more I think about these things. And then now I know from what you've said, from what Sunny said, from what Idly Musbit said, it's all like, yes, I have to practice. It just has to come naturally. So I caught myself the other day because I wanted to. There was a security guard in campus, and he's about my age. And I wanted to ask him something, and I was like, aku nak bagi dia bang. No, I mean like had lama fikir, okay. And then I just went in English. I was like, hey, sorry, can you show me where the... And then I had this discussion afterwards with some of my friends, and then my friends were like, it's fine, what? Abang, it's fine. It's a mark of respect. I said, yes, sure. Maybe back then. Maybe put me in Malaysia also. I'll be fine. I'll call everybody abang, everybody kakak. It's not an issue. But I've heard many times when people go, bila aku kahwin abang dia, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. And I go like, but there's so many perspectives to this thing, you know. And people would judge you for fully speaking English, or people will judge you for fully speaking Malay, and then people will judge you for making the choices that you do in whatever language that you choose. So honestly, just speak whatever lah.
Yeah. Don't need to think too much about
Yeah,
it.
no, I do.
No,
I do think a
But
lot.
yeah, I understand though. But I think when you mentioned like you detailed it out like through the live courses, I was like, oh yeah, I never realized that. I think it's more of a subconscious thing, but yes, it does evolve for at least for me too in the same ways. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I now speak to like the elderly, I feel such a need to like really place my words correctly. It's kind of like the same as speaking to people in Indonesia, where I don't say kamu, right? Because that's rude. So I call them mas or like there are these nuances that if you don't know, it might come across either rude or belittling, perhaps sometimes. And I think that's a lot of what stops some people from fully immersing it with everyone. So do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's a bit hard for me to say also, because I feel like I am very privileged to have been told to normalize the Malay language from a very young age. So like I know some people is like, oh, you know, at home it's not really that commonly used, but I think for me it's like, kalau bukan kita siapa? Like, I've heard that every year of like my Malay lessons since primary 1, I feel. And then also having a mom who's a Malay teacher, she's like, you know, tak malu ke mak cikgu Melayu tak tahu berbual bahasa Melayu? So I'm like, okay, got it. I will make sure it's like up to your standards. But I feel like it's definitely something that a lot of people like struggle or are like grappling with. And I feel like there's more of a desire to speak Malay than people realize. I think it's because everybody's a bit more like people more conservative about it, because again, like you mentioned, people can be quite judgmental sometimes when you say certain things. But I am a firm believer of like maybe just like taking like small steps. So, you know, just having like smaller conversations. I think part of like during my presidency, one of my starting or ending speeches, I can't remember, but it was to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Yeah. So I think maybe at the start it's a bit like, oh, it's a bit iffy and stuff like that. But I think after a while, like you know, we normalize it. So like even with Arfan also, like I think initially his Malay was like there, but I told him like hey, I kind of need to like I'll introduce it to him slowly lah. So it's like certain things, then I'll just kind of slip in the word, and then, you know, sometimes I think it also helps to pique his interest, aside from the interest that he already has on his own lah. So then, you know, sometimes I'll say like, kenapa kau macam cacing kepanasan which is like, you know, then he's like, what is cacing kepanasan? You know, then you like explain what it is.
I'm gonna add that phrase to the next Malay Mondays. Okay.
Oh, I heard that all my life growing up. My grandmother used to say it all the time. Yeah. So, or macam kedindapan tak tahu duduk diam.
Macam what?
Kedindapan. I have no idea what that word is.
Is
but
that one word? Oh,
I think it's one word.
okay.
Yeah. So kira macam like you same like tak tahu duduk diam.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like if you're running around.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's through the smaller conversations, I feel. I mean, I think it's very daunting if it's like, you know, just want to come out straight with like the perfect Malay, and like bahasa baku also, like I don't think bahasa baku is a very everyday kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think based on that example, it's like it's all the small things. So it's like I wouldn't know this cacing kepanasan thing, and I wouldn't use it so normally if it's not for my grandmother who like just gives it a bit here and there. Then, or it's like I think once I said, oh, misal kata, and my friend was like, do you just say misal kata like in a regular like canteen conversation? I'm like, oh, is that weird? Like I didn't know that was a weird thing. I use it all the time. Like it's always used in every day. So I think it's about creating a habit. So I don't think there should be any pressure or anything to be so like fancy from the start. But I think it's like the small things lah. Yeah, and I think because you give the example of like, you know, when having a conversation between like two partners, like it's a bit more comfortable. Maybe because you feel like you're on the same standing. But then once it's like the hierarchy kind of changes, then it's a bit harder. But I guess from a parent's perspective to a child, I think if it's not you, then who lah? Like you know, you can't really depend on the teacher to create that habit. So like small things. Yeah.
Okay, so you heard here first. Sit in the uncomfortable. What was it? Be comfortable
Be
in the
comfortable in the uncomfortable.
in the uncomfortable
Yeah.
and create habits. So go to Malay Mondays Instagram and then every Monday speak Malay. So today's not Monday, so
So
can
we
get
wait
away
for
with
next Monday lah.
yeah. So every Monday, how this all started was that every Monday I started with my friends, but like, what about we speak Malay every Monday? And then, I mean, I had to twist the arm lah. To be honest, it's for my benefit. I feel like they speak better Malay than I do. But at the time, I was like, no, I just need some space to be speaking Malay lah. Aside from, you know, like to my mom. And then they were like, okay, fine. And then the first couple of Mondays, just silent. The WhatsApp group was silent. Okay, nobody was saying anything because the minute they want to say something, I have to think about this in Malay. And then that's why we realized actually it's terrible because we're at this point where our thoughts are in English and then it has to be translated into Malay. But it's better now. But then I do notice that you have such a different personality in different languages.
Yeah.
And if you haven't spoken to your friends in Malay, do it and find out who they really are. Because when I speak Malay to my friends, it can come out a bit kasar. It can be and then the other one is like very customer service. She's you know, she's very like, not say baku, but very proper lah. In the way she says, very proper. The other one tiba-tiba jadi ustazah. Everything is alhamdulillah. I mean, yeah, it's great, but you don't say that in English. When we're talking in English, you can be, you know, can use curse words and all that. And then suddenly in Malay, you're like,
God bless.
yeah. And I said, maaf. I was like, baiknya. Okay, bagus. I said, so if I wanted my friend to be softer, maybe I should just speak to her in Malay and then maybe she'll be softer back. So if I'm going to tell her bad news, okay, maybe I shall say it in Malay. So that's interesting. Do you think that you have a different personality in different languages?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think in general, I'm just a more proper person. Like it takes me a sec to like kind of relax into things. But I think when I speak Malay in particular, it's a bit more, like you mentioned, like it's either the very kasar or it's like customer service, like very like, you know, I know what I'm doing, like almost like confident in a way, if I can find the words for it. But then I think with my friends, I think also where that comfort comes from, you know, when I like kind of test waters to see if they're comfortable to speak Malay, because I feel like it establishes a bond a lot faster than if you were just speaking in English. I'm not really sure why per se. Maybe it's like because Malay is a very emotive language, and a lot of things is like based on the tones, right? So when, or it's like whether it's like bad news or it's like just to emphasize the gravity of the situation, I feel like the Malay language is really what I would gravitate towards too. Yeah.
Okay, so next we'll read some postcards.
Okay.
So Malay Mondays had an installation at Tampines Primary School and Tampines Hub where we have mailboxes and a telephone booth. Okay, just like before we read this, right? Actually, so we have a mailbox, we have a telephone booth, and there were more people picking up the telephone to listen to the stories of the elders. But not a lot of them responded to the elders. They just went, cool lah, nak dengar. Then they pass to somebody else. So they don't respond. Then, but I know they understood the assignment because they said to the friend, tak jawab. Oh tak ah. Then hang up. Or like, I mean, all the conversation could happen in English. Like, oh, interesting. Then that's it. Oh, okay. Then they hang up.
Mm.
But then like for the postcards, even though I get less postcards, like they took the time to like
Mm.
write it. So for example, at OTH, I got maybe 500 to 600 engagements with the phone, and then for the postcards, I got about 200, which is still like a decent amount.
Mm.
And I found out that a couple of them actually listen to the phone, and then okay lah, I'll write my reply instead.
Mm.
I think that there might be like some kind of something is stopping them from speaking it.
Yeah.
I can't figure out why. It could be confidence, it could be the topic itself.
Mm.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I definitely don't have the answers for this also because like, I feel like different people is different lah, like why they don't. But I've made from my own personal experience, I feel like it's the judgment. Yeah, it's like if I don't sound a certain way or if I'm not saying things properly, because I feel I don't get this a lot with the English language, but with Malay language it's always like, oh, kenapa kau macam, why do you sound like that? Or it's like tu lah, mak cikgu tapi berbual Melayu macam gini. It's like there's always a point of comparison when you're speaking the language to whether it's good enough.
Like you're held to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay lah, I can't say for you because like your mom is a Malay teacher, so unfortunately the standard is higher for you lah. Okay? But we also hear this from people in whose moms are not Malay teachers, where they go like they speak English to their kids, and then when they speak Malay to their kids, and then the kids don't understand or whatever, there's this judgment of like, oh, no, orang Melayu takkan tak boleh buat Melayu.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't cultivated when they were
Right.
young. So I think again it goes back to let's practice it from home. Yeah. Okay, cool. So going to the postcards that we did get, I have 2 sets of postcards. This is quite long lah, but if you want to read read out this postcard from Husna, and then I'll read the response from Nek Aminah.
Okay. Hai Nek Aminah, nama saya Husna. Umur saya 10 tahun. Saya suka bermain dengan adik-beradik. Pada zaman dahulu, apakah permainan kamu bermain dengan adik-beradik atau kawan-kawan kamu? Di sekolah, kamu belajar apa? Saya belajar tarian inang, dikir barat dan wayang kulit. Saya dengan adik-beradik saya selalu gaduh. Apakah nasihat kamu? Terima kasih Nek Aminah. Sayang Husna. Oh, that's so cute.
So, as response, Nek Aminah wrote, Hai Husna, saya Nek Aminah. Bermain dengan adik-beradik adalah satu kegiatan yang baik. Pada masa nenek dahulu, nenek selalu bermain batu serembat, sembunyi-sembunyi, masak-masak bersama adik-adik dan kawan-kawan. Di sekolah, nenek suka belajar pelajaran kira-kira, bahasa Melayu, pantun dan syair. Nasihat nenek, adik-beradik jangan suka bergaduh, itu tak baik. Kakak sayang kepada adik dan adik kakak sayang kepada adik-adik. Dan adik pula hendaklah menghormati kakak. Sekian, Nek Aminah. What do you hear in this exchange?
I feel like it's a very almost standard conversation where it's a younger person asking an older person for advice. Yeah. And it's always like so as an elder, like I give the nasihat, and then but I think also if you like pry deeper into it, about the permainan. Okay, maybe not the permainan lah. Maybe the kamu belajar apa. So she says she belajar tarian inang, dikir barat and wayang kulit. I feel like those are not things you learn in a classroom. It's all like extra activities. But I think the ones that Nek Aminah mentioned is more like pantun, syair. So I think it's a bit more like formal and more classroom based. And I feel like the fact that this is what she remembers and that is what Nek Aminah remembers, it kind of signifies like how much where they get the exposure of the Malay language from and where it really captures their attention also.
Oh yeah. That's lovely. I wouldn't have noticed that. Cool. There's also like a lot of this like people asking for advice about fighting with their siblings. Do you fight with your siblings?
Fortunately not anymore. But last
I mean,
time,
yeah, when you were a kid, sure,
yes,
sure, yeah. Do you have any empathy for Husna over here?
As a fellow older sister, yes, I do.
Okay, so the next one is from Aish to Nenek. Maybe you can read the response lah. I'll read the Aish one. So Aish wrote, "Hai Nenek, nama saya Aish. Saya berumur 10 tahun. Saya suka main telefon bimbit bila ada masa lapang. Makanan kegemaran saya lauk ayam asam pedas. Apakah lauk kegemaran Nenek? Dahulu Nenek sekolah mana? Terima kasih."
Hai Aish, cucu gemar lauk ayam asam pedas. Nenek pun suka lauk itu, lebih pedas lebih sedap kan? Nenek sekolah di Duchess Primary School dan Monks Hill Secondary School. Sekarang sekolah-sekolah nenek tu dah dirobohkan. Bye cucu.
This one is I mean it's also quite lighthearted, I suppose. It's just like, what's your favorite food?
Yeah.
But I'm actually really glad that what they wrote is like, nama makanan kegemaran saya lauk ayam asam pedas, because I think that on the first episode they mentioned like apparently there's a lot of people who don't know Malay dishes also. So this is like really nice that they say that one of their favorite food is a Malay dish and they know what's the name. Not just the ayam yang my mother always cook.
Yeah.
And then so this one hasn't been responded, but I think, I mean, unless you have thoughts about this.
No, not really. I think it's just very cute interaction.
Right?
Yeah.
It's cute. This one is one of my favorites. It hasn't been responded yet, but maybe you can respond.
Okay. I read it out.
Yeah.
Hai Atuk Ayah, nama saya Sofia. Saya 10 tahun. Apakah jellyfish dalam Melayu? Ikan agak-agak ke? Love Sofia? Wow, I have no idea.
Ikan agak-agak ke dia tanya?
Oh, that's very creative though, I have to say. Yeah.
Because when I looked at this also, I was like, actually, yeah, what is jellyfish? And then I googled it.
Oh, okay. So
it's obor.
Oh, I would not have guessed that.
Yeah,
I think this is a very good guess.
Yes. I think if I say ikan agak-agak, you can guess what it is.
Yes,
so
because of the direct translation.
Yes. Okay, if you could okay, so we're going towards the end of our podcast. If you could design or think about one thing, like a space, a ritual, a product that could make young people feel more connected to Malay, what would it be?
It's a big question.
I mean, like we're thinking of spaces where people can speak Malay. Like, what would entice them to actually do that?
Okay, I'm just thinking out loud because there's not really any product or any space per se. So I think I'm going more based off like a feeling.
Okay.
So they would definitely need to feel like comfortable. I feel like a bit more relaxed. So I feel like maybe something to do with food, because I feel like food is always like the one that it sets the setting, kind of lowers down your barrier. You feel a bit more comfortable, and it's also just like offering somebody something lah. So I feel like something that can kind of break that barrier. Sorry, this is not like the most concrete answer, but I think
really we're talking about like off the top of your head. What?
I just keep thinking about food lah. Maybe it's like a conversation I had yesterday because I had like dance practice yesterday and we were talking about sirih. So it's like how like sirih is actually like I mean it's not really used anymore, but it used to be as a like now they kasih like orang air, right? But then they used to give sirih last time. So it's kind of like now it's like jamu-jamu or whatever. Like But that was how they kind of like that was what they served to people that came to their house lah. So I think it's like how it kind of opens the door for like a conversation. So it's like oh, maybe try this. Oh, actually what is this? Oh, actually Malay is this. I just learned that the other day. Then you just kind of like weave it into the conversation. But I feel like food is always something that people like, right? And I feel like while people, for example, they might not know what the Malay food is, but they know they like the taste.
Right.
So it's like from that, then maybe it can be kind of like weaved into it. Yeah. I think from like my, I'm not a big Malay like kuih-kuih kind of person. So honestly, I also don't know half the names of it. But Puchi Salad I know. So it's like it's like that. It's like I will definitely know that. So I think it's the small things that kind of help people become comfortable lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What gives you hope about the future of the Malay language in Singapore?
What gives me hope about the Malay language in Singapore?
Nothing.
I think the fact that minimally people still use it, and even like in the daily interactions, it still has its importance. And I feel ultimately the emotion that is being able to be conveyed through the language is what I feel carries it above and beyond, and it's why people still use it. And I think because it helps to create that bonding experience or that connection to another person a bit more seamlessly than maybe like the English language, I feel like if that feeling is something that can be quote unquote like sold to people, then I think more people would be using it lah. Yeah.
Okay. As you're saying that, I thought about the phrase "tumpang lalu," and I thought that it's really not something that is translatable, aside from like "excuse me."
Yeah.
But then there's also various examples that you can use "excuse me" in. But "tumpang lalu" is very specific.
Yeah.
I'm coming through.
Yeah.
Cool. If you could leave one message to a young person listening to this podcast who isn't even sure if Malay matters anymore, what would you say?
I mean, if you feel like it doesn't matter, I cannot force you to feel like it matters.
Yeah.
But I think maybe just explore it a bit lah. Like don't kill it before you give it a chance. You know? Yeah. Maybe it's a bit uncomfortable or whatever, but then hey, if you don't like it, then you don't like it lah. You know, if you don't see that it's important, it's fine. But I think minimally give it a chance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give it a chance. Okay. So every Monday, let's speak Malay with our friends. Thank you very much. Yeah, Yasmin, thank you so much for being a fellow knowledge keeper. Your voice reminds us that the future of the language doesn't just rest on policy or institutions. It rests on people like you who chose to study it, to dance it, and to live it. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you for having me.